What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. It is totally not the same day as our last episode,
Totally
but we are
didn't
here.
just change on camera.
We are here with a special promotion tournament edition of Salty Runback for episode 61. Now, we talked all about the NACL playoffs. They are all wrapped up. We got our grand final set. Unfortunately, we do not know the results of anything.
What do you mean?
Have
Yeah, we
happened
do.
over
It's
the weekend.
Dragonsteel versus Supernova. So I mean, like,
Blue,
you know.
Blue Otter made the run. Oh my
Holy
God.
shit! They're going to
How
Brazil.
crazy is that? The Otters are going to Brazil. Yeah, we don't know anything about that. However, we do know a lot about Tier 3, and that is what we'll be talking about here, as well as the bottom two teams from Tier 2, AOE Esports and CCG. They'll all be playing in the promotion tournament starting today, and we're here to talk all about it. We'll do a quick headline session, a quick part 2 to go through all the teams, to unveil our brackets, to reveal our picks for who will be representing the NACL for 2025. Once again, my name is Grapes, joined by Hawk. Hawk, I already asked you how you're doing today, so you ready to get into this thing?
Yeah, let's just send it.
I mean,
Let's just send it. We got to get the show on the road.
This is my favorite part of the year. We talk about it every single week on the broadcast, getting ready for the promotion tournament, and it's finally here. 6 straight days of League of Legends to determine the two teams that'll be in the NACL for 2025. And hey, as we kept saying, could end up being pretty important, as the new America system and things like that really could reward some teams that find themselves in the NACL for the 2025 split. So don't know too much about all the details and things like that just yet. Hopefully we'll find out some more during the off season. But things to consider as we start off our headlines. So start off by recapping the qualifiers, which featured Dragoon's Goons once again ending up on top, a 3-0 victory over Komodo. They did have a little bit of hesitation in the semifinals. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit later, but Hawk, let's just talk about this team a little bit. Dragoon's Goons, so dominant top to bottom. Every one of those players towards the top of the tiers in Tier 3. Maybe almost a little bit too much, and that's the question that I want to ask. They were so mechanically sound the entire tournament. Was their win in NACLQ just based off of their hands? Or are they actually a solid team that could perform at the higher level?
It is absolutely not a hands diff. In fact, like I think anyone that would have this idea about Dragoon's Goons, I think didn't watch enough of their tape, because I mean, Dragoon's Goons did hands diff everyone, but that's not the point, right? It's that like they actually are a really good team. I think ever since they played Lotus in the grand finals of the first tournament, we've really gotten to see their very, very good fundamentals in the way they lock in and play the game. Like against Komodo in the finals specifically, Grapes, I think something that tilted me so much on, and the fact that it ended up being a 3-0, was that, excuse me, I burped a little bit, was that Komodo really wasn't getting hands gapped. They just made some really big mistakes in like the mid stages of the game that gave Dragoon's Goons enormous leads through both of the first 2 games, right? That I, was very critical of on the broadcast, and Dragoon's Goons was able to punish that so well. Once they got an advantage, they never really lost it. The third game is fake, like that just was a scrim, but like who cares? Yeah, I think the Goons are actually a really good team. I've really been impressed at how they play together. They do still have some problems. Dragoon sometimes over pushes on side, for example. Like they sometimes Dapshin goes a little too far. He sends it a little too much. You know what I mean? But that's the kind of thing that you take with those players. But I really do think they actually have a great understanding of how they want to play together. And you want to get into the hands diff stuff too. I mean, they won't lose team fights against really anybody, which makes it pretty easy.
Well, that's the thing. I think a lot of the time there were games where Dragoon's Goons maybe was behind or was in a situation that they shouldn't have been in because of, either careless mistakes or the like, and they were able to out-team fight their opponents all the way to a victory. But think I do agree with you that it was not just a hand stiff. Take for example, I said we are going to talk about it later, but Duckie Getters, the semifinal matchup that they played against each other. That game 3, when Dragoon got absolutely targeted and shut down, sent into the dirt on his Darius.
Tough.
You know what happened? Array popped off, but it was not just because of Array. It was because of really solid teamfight setups from Sudsy and Daption to give Array angles to start to come back, and that kind of led to them winning that game. I think if Dragoon's Goons were against maybe any of the other teams in the qualifiers, maybe even some teams in the NACL, and were in that situation, the way that they were able to play those fights out, I think they would have been able to do it the same way. You know, you can credit maybe a player like Bio or Rough Beans being a little bit more inexperienced, not knowing how to close a game like that, and I think that's fair. But I don't think it's just hands, as you say. I think a lot of it was hands.
Yeah.
I think that they definitely would have lost games if they were playing against teams that had the same hands as them, if that makes sense. But I do think that this is a solid team, and especially compared to the competition that they are going to be playing against in the promotion tournament, I don't think that will be too much of an issue. The fact that they hand stiff people, I think that their play is sound enough that they are not just using their hands. Maybe a team that was using their hands, Komodo, in the finals a little bit. I mean, we saw how they threw a couple of big leads after actually handing it to Dragoon's Goons a little bit in the early stages.
Yeah. No, Komodo honestly had some inexcusable like mid-late game mistakes. Like they just contested some waves that like, guys, we just don't need to do that. And they ended up being late to things. Like I love the way you wrapped it up with Dragoon's Goons though. I think like they beat everybody because they were better players, but they are a good enough team to have beaten someone that's on their level as well. Are they a perfect team though? No, sometimes they do go a little too far forward, but they have a lot of positives. Like even though they sometimes see angles that aren't there, they also see a lot of angles that a lot of players would not see. Their setups are really good. They all clearly trust each other. I do feel like they always have an idea behind their game plans. I mean, hell, I even think they learn things throughout the split. Like, for example, the first time they played the Duckie Getters in semis last tournament, I said that that Dragoon's Goons was getting outside laned in that series, even though they were winning pretty handily, right? Where something that we saw, for example, against Komodo is, I think the Goons were able to play really well around side lane pressure. Like, I think they learned how they wanted to use Dragoon's skill set to put themselves in winning positions, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think the team has learned stuff. I would not want to play against them. I mean, Grapes, we've said this, and I'm just going to keep it a stack. I think this is the team that's the favorite to promote.
Wouldn't be too surprised if we both have them going through in our brackets. That's all I'll say. Let's move on to our next headline now, but we're still going to continue talking about Dragoon's Goons a little bit because it's about our NACL qualifier awards. The winner of one of them, of course, being Array, our most valuable player of the NACL qualifiers. He was incredibly dominant. We just talked about him, but there have been a lot of instances of very dominant players in the tier 3 space before. But Hawk, my question to you is Array's summer 2024 season the most dominant tier 3 season of all time?
It's definitely up there. First of all, sorry to anyone that likes reading our headlines on the left. I realized I had episode 60's overlay up for the first one. Now it's at 61, so we're totally not recording on the same night. Totally not recording on the same night. Yeah. Either way, now that's correct. And man, Array had a hell of a season. I mean, so who else is up here? Like, you've got Arrow.
I nominated a couple.
One.
I nominated a couple before we came in. When we talk about tier 3, I think we're pretty much in agreement for going back to 2021, which was when the start of the proving ground system happened, and there were the tier 3 tournaments. There were other iterations of tier 3 that existed, but A, Hawk and I weren't around for those, and B,
we're starting it in 2021. Yeah,
it gets a little confusing with the way that things connect to scouting ground circuit and things like that. We didn't want to deal with that. The top 3 for me Top four. Number one, the first ever goated tier 3 team, No Team, and Viper up in the top lane. That guy invented the 80 carry top lane meta 4 years before his prime.
Wait, no org, because we also have a no team
no
player
org.
on this list.
Yeah, no org on there. Speaking of 2021 as well, Zazel on Solo Fide had a crazy spring split as well. I know that roster didn't end the way that we wanted it to, but that guy, just seeing him at that level, at his peak, just coming off of a split on Evil Geniuses to just dominating like Cup was crazy. We go to 2021 summer. I think a player like Arrow out there as well, who just wiped the floor with everybody. Wild card, winning a bunch of tournaments, making it to Proving Grounds. And then in 2022, we had I listed Insanity on 100 Next and Griffin from No Team. I don't think Griffin necessarily is all the way up there, but I think I'm seeing him through rose tinted glasses as being a pretty as remembering his season as being.
I
really,
don't
really
think
good.
he's up on this list personally, but he did have a great season. I remember having to fight with people to tell them that he actually was the best jungler in the league. No one really had to do that with any of these other players.
So what do you think?
If I had to do a top three, it's Array, Insanity, and Arrow. I do think Array passes...
Viper was pretty good, man.
Viper was pretty
know.
good.
Oh,
I think
it's so tough.
I think Array passes Arrow in the ADC contest, though, Grapes. I'm going to be honest. Like, Arrow played in one of the strongest splits of Tier 3 ever. You know, it's either 21 Summer or the 2022 splits. It has to be. But I do think while he did so much for his team, like Array had to do a lot for the Goons, especially in Tournament 1. You know what I mean? And it's hard to separate him from Daption as well, because I do think both of these players lane with Daption. What the fuck? Wait, maybe it's just Daption. Maybe he's the answer to this question. Oh my god. You know what, Grapes? I'll say yes. I think Array... I didn't see a single game where he was the worst AD carry in the entire split. There were games in which, like, he might have gotten attacked a little bit, fell behind, enemy ADC gets ahead. Array was still always the strongest guy on his team. It just didn't matter. Like, someone find the clip from Meatballs where Bill Murray says it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter, because that's what it felt like watching Array on Dragoon's Goons. Nothing mattered because Array would be God anyway.
Interesting. I just thought of another one. Bradley from last split. It was only one tournament, but man.
Yeah, it was only one
Crazy
tournament
stuff.
though.
He was dominant. He was dominant enough to be named first team after just one tournament.
This is
I think
true. I think Array beats Bradley. Array beats Bradley for sure.
Array just did it in such a quiet, unassuming way.
He just kind of beat everyone.
He would just suddenly be 7-0. That's what we said about him on Supernova, where he just could randomly just pop off. He always seemed like a threat. I think we gave him an award for biggest threat or something like that a couple of episodes ago, last split.
Yeah.
He just always is so scary. Didn't do it in a flashy way. I think Arrow, Viper, Insanity a little bit more flashy. But Array was just so solid every single game. I think there's also a separation that you have to make between dominant and best. I mean, the fact that we named two players from the same split a couple of times in those mentions, makes you remember that Tier 3 was very, very stacked back in the day, and that while these players might have been better, they also might have had more competition playing against them.
Yeah.
I really don't think Array had much competition.
He
I mean,
didn't.
the Tier 2, the second team ADC was Sushi, and I think it was pretty unanimous that Array was first over him.
Yeah, I think maybe that's the sell. Like, Array, even aside from how he played against the other teams, he really was just not even close the best ADC. He won first team ADC and MVP, by the way, with you can't win all the votes because people are getting first, second, and third place votes, right? Array still had 65 to 70% of the votes. like with that system, which is crazy. I guess the most you could possibly get is 66.7% of the votes because it's 3 points for first team, 3 points for second and third combined, right? So yeah, like he had like 60% of the vote when you can only win up to 67%. Like, I don't know, man. That's out of control.
He was pretty good. Last thing. I might be Viper. I just
don't remember
maybe,
that split well enough, bro.
maybe
My
it's like
world was
me-
peak performance Y with Bajani on it. Like
maybe
it's hard
maybe
for
it's
me
just
to...
me like remembering the good old days when I was like a freshman in college watching those games. But
Fuck, dude,
Viper's vein,
college.
Viper's Kalista top lane into him and Anda both getting picked up by Immortals. Man, like crazy stuff. That guy was
I
way
know
too
he was
good.
nuts. I wish I remembered it more. I do
He would
think
have
that's
been
part
an
of the
easy
reason why
nine.
I've not
He
been
would
including him.
have been an easy 99 if we did our player cards.
So he can be the greatest top laner that ever
Greatest
played
top
in
laner.
tier 3. Yeah.
Sure.
With,
All right.
So our tier 3 all decade team is Viper, Griffin, Insanity, Array, and Zazel. Or Daption. I mean,
Could be Daption.
could be Daption.
We'll start a dialogue. That's next episode. Our third headline here, talking about some of the awards that we gave out for the NACLQ still. Of course, we had the MVP. Of course, we had our All-Pros. We had Most Improved Player. We had Newcomer of the Split. Shout out, of course, to all of the award winners there. But something we didn't give out was the MVP Most Valuable Prospect, which is an award that the NACL has always given out and will be giving out again in the finals happening on Sunday. Now, there's a couple of reasons why we decided to do this, but it boils down to there's so many people that come in through the qualifiers. It felt like very weird to have a very general award for such a specific criteria. So, Hawk, my question to you is, out of all the players, if we did give out this award, who would you be giving the most valuable prospect of the summer NACLQ?
Dude, this is so hard because like there's so many answers. So many answers.
Now, it gets a little bit interesting because I know that sometimes the NACL broadcast will like throw out or like disqualify certain players based on their previous performances, like if they played in a tier 1 region or not. I don't think playing in the NACL necessarily takes you out of the equation,
Right.
but I think there is some nuance that we have to take into account when doing this award. Like most, I
we're
think
not
a
giving
player,
it to Dardoch.
Like we're not giving it to Dardoch. We're not giving it to Array. I don't think.
Okay.
I think there can be
Yeah.
arguments about most of the other players here.
Okay. No, that makes sense. So we're doing it like would win the most games in the NACL in the next calendar year or the next 2 years or whatever.
That hasn't, and hasn't established themselves as
Okay.
a like NACL level player yet.
Does Daption qualify?
Now that's up to interpretation because he definitely could be on that list.
Okay. I think my top 3 are all on the Goons. After we talk about these 3 and whoever else you want to bring up, I'm going to give like a lot of shout outs, okay?
Okay.
I think my top 3 in order are Daption if he counts, Kisno, and Sudsy. That's my 3.
All brilliant choices.
I don't really think I need to elaborate on that. That would be my top 3, just like off the dome.
I think I agree with you for the most part. I mean, the only question is does Daption count? But he's only had one split.
He's only had one split in the NACL, which
it's hard
is
to forget.
arguably
It's hard to
criminal
remember
in
that.
and of itself, but
Yeah, it's hard to remember that sometimes. But he played pretty solid when he was on Fear. He played great here on the Goons. I definitely think he deserves another chance. Whether it's through him promoting or him just getting picked up by somewhere else. Same thing can be said for someone like Kisno, who is a little bit newer. I think he still definitely counts as a prospect. Definitely should be on that list. And then Sudsy, Prince of Promotion, never has gotten that chance, and he's looking to do it. And I think he would be okay on the NACL stage.
yeah, I agree. I mean, of course I agree.
Are we gonna give our
Yeah.
like alternate choices now, like someone that's not on the Goons?
Well, let me ask you first. Is there anyone that you would put above those 3 players, or in league with?
So that's where it gets interesting, and that's why it would suck to like give this award out because of all the nuance and conversations like that could come about with things like this. I think that someone like Mixture could be in the running
If
we're
Daption doesn't
thinking of
qualify,
somebody.
yeah.
Yeah, if we're thinking of someone who's like never been at that level before. I think he had a great split. I think he had a great year, honestly. Whether it was like in the
I
spring split
agree.
or in the summer. And helped somebody like Sushi come up and play really well as well. Made both of his ADCs look really good, whether it was Sushi or with Psycho in the spring.
I think Mixture was the best player on Lotus in the spring split, which is saying a lot. So,
Trying to remember. I think that's a decent assessment. Because what you have Porsche, you have
Porsche, Frost Forest, Odd Orange, Robbie Bob, Aljun, and Psycho.
yeah. I think that's fair. I think Robbie played better on BlackRock than he did on Lotus, so
Yes,
I can give him
he
that
did.
there.
He did.
Make sure to be my shout. Another one could be. Oh man, this is when it gets tough. Like I think Anori B and Enthralled both had good moments, maybe more towards Enthralled even.
I would
but
lean in Thrald's
It
direction.
was,
Yeah.
but it was more towards like the back half of the split compared to the beginning. Honestly, remember he was getting carried by somebody like Bio and Rough Beans on Duckie Getters, who I think are a little bit too early in their careers to be receiving an award like this. Enthralled, I think, with his team fight play and his ability to be very flexible in his champ pool, I think could get him some points as well.
Yeah. Enthralled is an interesting one. I honestly, personally wouldn't have him on my list, although I do think Enthralled is very good. Honestly, Sushi is a part of the conversation. Sushi's the guy that's gonna be considered like a good AD carry in tier 3. Some tier 2 org is gonna pick him up and they're gonna really like iron out the kinks and they're gonna make him into a great. And that's kind of the way I see him. I'm just gonna like go down the line and list some names. Dr. Calculus and Dragoon in the top lane, obviously. Bio in the jungle with Kisno. Mid, I honestly don't think there's anyone other than Sudsy. I guess Robbie, but do we count Rob? I guess we count
Yeah,
Robbie,
I mean, you
but
would count Robbie. I don't know if he would get it for this split specifically.
yeah. AD carry, it's mostly no one. Like Sushi maybe, but like I said, like I do think Sushi is still. I can see the talent in him, but I can't give him the most valuable prospect award over someone like, Kisno, yet. And then support, I do think Mixture is a really good call. Also Pika, honestly, in the conversation as well.
He played well too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
kind
I,
of who I'd rattle off.
I think we're at a point where there's been a lot of promotions into the LCS, which means more promotions into the NACL. And because of that, this split felt a little bit weaker than it normally would, other than teams like Dragoons and Goons. I did not necessarily see a big prospect that's like, oh, he's obviously going to go to the NACL next split. That has, like, for his rookie split. Like,
Yeah.
I think the closest argument is, like, the Lotus bot lane. But I'm not even so sure about that.
I really think
Freelancer.
Bio was quite good, but
He was quite
Yeah.
good. Just one split, though. And, people are going to look at his solo queue rank and I think be a little bit worried. Not that I would be. I think if he has a chance to write that narrative if he plays well in this promotion tournament. But it's just something that we have to keep in mind.
if someone has Bio sit down and spend 2 hours a day just practicing his first 2 jungle clears, that guy will be such a monster. Mark my words.
We all know the real answer, though. It's Arbrio from Apex Mission Impossible, right?
Sure.
Best stats of all time. Yeah,
That's a good one.
so good.
That's it. Our Brio, most valuable prospect. Can't wait to see him in
let-
tier 3 though.
Let's move on. Talking about some of the other teams in the promotion tournament. Of course, we're going to get into all of them in our part 2. But specifically from the teams from the NACL going down, AOE and CCG each made changes to their AD carry position going into the split, and they were both players who were in the promotion tournament last split as well. Mobility subbing in for the last couple of weeks for AOE, and Rockboom replacing Minui after he left for Disguised. Now, Hawk, I don't know what the best way to describe this question is, I guess, but which move or which fit do you like more?
It's a great question. Because I'm gonna be honest, I think they both have played well. Like I hold them in very similar regard, honestly. Rockboom's maybe a little stronger, but I honestly, mobility's good. Like he's the next guy I would have taken, it's him or Lynx, right? Which I actually do think Lynx is probably stronger than both of them, but regardless, that's not the question. I think Rockboom is a little bit stronger in team fights. I think Mobility is a little stronger in lane. I'm probably happier if I am CCG because I think with their top side being Kryra, Crimson, and Shochi, they lack a little bit of that late game hyper carry reliability that Rockboom is sure to bring them. I don't think they need another win lane, lose game potential, like, youngster. You know what I mean? Like, Mobility's also less experienced than Rocco, even though they're pretty close. But, so that's going to be my answer, I think. I think if they were to swap teams, I do think it would hurt CCG more to have Mobility. Does that make sense?
I think it does.
But I think they're both very good. I think they're both happy.
I will say, I'm going to read off. So, Mobility played 6 games for AOE. There were 3-game series against FlyQuest Challengers and Supernova. And something that we don't mention about AOE Esports is despite all the roster changes, despite them going 7-9, they won 7 games. 7 of their 9 series went the distance. 2 of them, of course, being with Mobility. I'm going to read off his KDAs to you right now. And I want to see your reaction. 836, 818, 636, 706, 5314, 743.
He had 2 good series. And he was generating leads too. Like again, him and Breezy, still Breezy is support, right? I can't even remember.
Yep, all Breezy. So.
I think I do think Mobility is actually a pretty talented laner. I mean, the only person we've ever seen get the better of him in lane is Shogo and I guess Jerry. But that's 2 insane players. So
yeah. I mean, seeing him put up the numbers after, talking so long about how he deserves to be there after, his last time in the NACL did not go super well as he was just a rookie. It was very cool to see him put up these numbers. I know that he's going to be very motivated to continue to prove that he belongs here. This promotion tournament is an obstacle that he has faced 2 splits in a row and has failed to reach them. And this might be the team to do it. This is AOE's roster, I think, is set up for Mobility to get a lot of attention, to get a lot of resources, and to pop off in team fights. And I think for him, that means that his, the onus of the wins for AOE, I think, are going to be on him a lot throughout this tournament. Honestly, you could say a similar thing for Rocco too. I do like this mobility fit here on this team. Somehow it didn't work as well with Wixie for whatever reason, or maybe he just, the vibes just weren't great. But something about this, I don't know. I know that we were talking down on AOE a lot, but I think as we go into our part 2, what my take might be is that this AOE team might not be as far behind as we might think. Yeah,
I think it's a fair take. I mean, again, I think Mobility's been playing good League of Legends. I think both these AD carries are good. And they've both been good subs for their teams.
Remember, Rockboom also played on Dragonsteel, so he is going to be the only player to have an NACL ring and also be in the promotion tournament at the same time.
But he failed to torpedo FlyQuest when it mattered most for CCG, so, because he did it at the beginning of the season with Dragonsteel. He could have torpedoed them again in week 9 and avoided promotion.
Oh, man. A lot more to talk about with these teams. Before we do so, we're going to do some quick reflecting on the entirety of the NACL qualifier season. Again, thank you so much. If you did tune in at any single point throughout this year, it was a great, huge project that Hawk and I had the privilege of taking on. We had some really awesome help, whether it was through guest casters, Cam, our producer, Leanne, our graphics producer, Rare Adam, who helped us out as well. So thank you so much to everybody. But self-indulging aside, what was your favorite moment from this Tier 3 season? We had a lot of them.
Grapes, we produced 31 broadcasts in the Tier 3 space over 20 weeks this year. It's a lot. It's a lot of broadcasts. How do we pick? I enjoyed making gooning jokes. That was a lot of fun. It's not even, I mean, we still got more in the tank. I can't wait to mortify the official Riot broadcast with that. Because they can't stop me. I'm sorry, they can't.
They don't know what's coming.
Fuck. I enjoyed everything about the Duckie Getters, truly. I am so shamelessly biased towards that team. I really have loved that story. I have enjoyed in Tier 3 tonight a lot of the segments we came up with. I found creative. The FIFA cards was a good one. There's like I'm trying to think of like specific moments, but I'm struggling. This is too much.
I've got two. One of them in game, one of them out of game. Out of game, Tier 3 tonight, Wikipedia race. I was so glad I was able to make that. I was so glad I got to subject you to my knowledge of. Was
that your favorite content piece that you did? Dude, I
had a lot
hated
of fun
it. I know you didn't
like it.
I was so stressed.
It was fun being on the other side, watching
it's
Lawrence
really
just
horrible.
destroy everybody. The Immaculate Grid was also fun.
The Immaculate Grid was good. I was not as bad at that. So
the trivia involving the history, I had a lot of fun making. Maybe we could bring that back, just post it on Salty Runback or something at some point. And then in game, ironically, not on stream, but the first qualifier finals, watching Music's POV stream of them against Winthrop, and seeing the reverse sweep.
That was
kind of from a POV. I remember Hawk and I, we were just messaging each other like insane, like just like live.
Dude, the amount of times I messaged Grapes and said this series is over for it to have in fact not been over was.
Yeah. That was one of the best series I ever watched, and it was from a POV stream. It was, oh man, it was so good.
Yeah.
And I think part of it was the magic of kind of Music just getting hundreds of viewers and all of us kind of gathering around him or gathering around that stream in a time that we weren't able to broadcast the games live, but we still wanted to see what was happening. I really enjoyed that moment, and of course the games that we casted were fun too. But that was by far the best qualifier finals that we had to split, and we all got to watch it as fans, and I thought that was great.
I do think that's a good call. To give some shouts to other teams. Ole Miss had a lot of good moments in spring as well. TikTok dancing with Marty I enjoyed a lot. That was a fun content piece to make. I looked so ridiculous because I was too stiff. It's so hard to dance on camera through Discord delay. It was okay. Either way, Morningstar White, I have to remember that as well.
Yeah.
It's a good year of Tier 3. It really was. I think a lot of people were kind
fun.
of down on Tier 3 this year, and understandably. I mean, there were systematic issues. Advertising was low, viewership's down, all this, that. But, I really enjoyed what we got to do because, a lot of it was just kind of like our ideas. And not just... I didn't like it because it was our ideas, but I enjoyed, trying to play... Like, a puzzle that Grapes and I frequently had to solve was... And we do this on Salty Runback as well, is we know what we want to talk about, but we try to then take that information and put it inside a package that's fun and exciting, right? Like, it's like taking a present and then putting fun wrapping paper on it. Like, it's a new Xbox. You asked your mom for it, but do you really know it's a new Xbox, right? Like, that was a terrible analogy. But, like, that was the kind of thing I enjoyed doing. Like... The FIFA cards, right, Grapes, that was born out of us saying, okay, we want to talk about we want to celebrate the best players from this split. but like how do we do that in a way that's fun and engaging? And we came up with a lot of ideas that way, and I found that fun, from behind the scenes, that perspective, because there was so much to talk about.
It was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed. So hopefully you did too. And whatever happens for next year, whether we're involved with the qualifiers or not, definitely going to still be following it here. So make sure you continue to tune in on Salty Runback at the very least. But that's going to do it for our headlines. We got some promotion to talk about, so let's move on to our part 2. It is time for the NACL Promotion Tournament. The road to Tier 3 ends here. The top 4 teams from the qualifiers meet up against the bottom 2 teams from the NACL to see which 2 teams will be in the Challengers League for 2025. This is, as we said at the top of the show, our favorite time of every single split. We've seen crazy stories in every single promotion tournament, and we're about to see some more here, featuring some pretty familiar faces to this promotion tournament, as we also alluded to earlier. And we're going to play a game called the Fire and the Flame. Now, you might be thinking, Grapes, those are the exact same things. Well, not so much. We're going to talk about each team in the promotion tournament. We're going to tell you what is fire about this team, what is really good about this team, and then maybe throw a little flame their way. What are some of their weaknesses? What do they have to worry about going into the promotion tournament? That makes sense, Hawk?
Yeah, no, I love it. I think this is incredible. Dude, the Fire and the Flames, let's carry on.
It sounds like it's like the name of a song. I don't actually know if that's the case or not.
Well,
I just thought it sounded
Grapes,
cool.
have you ever played Guitar Hero?
I have like a couple times at the arcade where I I put in a song, I try to play a couple of notes, and it just instantly like fails me because I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay,
So
well,
no,
if you've
not
ever
really.
played Guitar Hero and you're a real one, you know that Through the Fire and the Flames by Dragon Force is notoriously the hardest song in Guitar Hero, and it's also a really fun speed metal song, and that's why I said Through the Fire and the Flames will carry on, because that's the lyric. So
You know more than me. I just thought it sounded cool. So hey, parallel minds, great minds think alike.
Yeah, we got it. I really thought you said that like trying to joke, but I mean,
No.
it's just like when you pretended to know dodgeball, so it's fine. Like we're Grapes just doesn't understand pop culture.
Dude,
What can I say?
This time I did not pretend to know. At least you can give me that.
All right. Well,
Alright,
either way.
We're gonna start. We're gonna
let's
start
get
with our
started.
NACL teams. We're gonna then talk about our qualifier teams. Once again, one good thing, one bad thing about each of them, as well as just giving some general conversations. We're gonna start with CCG, who finished 9th place in the regular season. Finished, actually, I think tied in record with Winthrop, but then ended up advancing, or Winthrop ended up advancing because of points. Is that correct, or because of win-loss record?
Didn't Winthrop have 4 wins? No, they definitely didn't. Yeah, they must have had it over win-loss record. Yeah.
Hold on.
Did Winthrop have 4 wins? They might
Let me
have
double
had
check.
4 wins, Grapes.
No. Winthrop had 3. CCG had 3. But
Okay.
CCG had 1 less game win, and actually had the same number of game wins as our next team, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But it meant that they, of course, were sent to the relegation tournament or promotion tournament. Their roster is Crimson, Kryra, who replaced Chad halfway through the season, Shochi, that Rockboom sub that we talked about, and then Trevor. Initial thoughts before we give our fire and the flame?
It's a good team. Yeah, I don't I don't know. We have not seen that much of this iteration of CCG. We riffed on them not being able to torpedo FlyQuest at the end of the split. I think initial thoughts are that honestly Crimson had a better start to his tier 2 career than I was expecting. I was not sold at the end of the tier 3 split, even though I thought he played well. I just thought he would have some growing pains. I think he's looked good. Trevor has continued to have just a good year across the board. And Shochi has not looked like the mid laner that he was last year. That's kind of, I think, my initial thoughts.
Yeah, I don't remember too much from this team in the regular season, except for their first series against Supernova, which was very, very close. And also that Kryra, I think, also got a chance to impress a little bit towards the end of the season. And I think he did have some pretty good games. I will agree with you on Crimson. Did not think that he was going to be super hot coming out of the gates. He did state it was going to be his goal to make it to the NACL. He definitely did so, and honestly was able to hold his own as a young player. I think that's pretty impressive. This roster seemed like it was built pretty last minute with players like Bradley, Instinct going to other teams kind of towards the end, Yukino as well. And it seemed like they kind of just picked up the scraps of all the other teams and ended up with Chad, Shochi, and Minui. Obviously, two of those three pieces have left. And I think that might be my flame to them is that, even though we think of them as maybe a bit more of a solid roster, they have a lot of roster. They have had a decent amount of roster turnover. And while they might have had a couple of weeks to scrim together, who knows if that actually did happen or not.
Yeah. That's a good flame, honestly. My flame is similar, but it's actually going to be more specific. I worry that there might just be too many cooks and conflicting play styles on this iteration of CCG. We mentioned how Rockboom, not the strongest laner, really likes to have the support that wants to scale alongside him. Trevor is more, I feel like, of a map play support than anybody. Shochi can do anything. Kryra can be both a facilitator and a carry, but I feel like Grapes, he has a very niche champion pool. Like, he doesn't play all the basic stuff that, like, you kind of expect from a jungler. And then similarly, Crimson also, like, has his picks. You know what I mean? And I worry that they don't have, like, at least with the names on the screen and what I know these players for, I don't know if they have a well-defined identity. And that's what worries me. And I think that's also what we saw, by the way, get them into trouble in the last 2 weeks of the season or whatever when they had Kryra and Rockboom playing, is they looked alright, but it felt like they didn't really know how they wanted to actually win the game. And so they didn't. And it's like, plenty of time to figure that out, but that is my flame at this moment.
I think you look at the 5 players, I honestly can kind of see how a playstyle that could work for them. You put Rockboom on a pretty safe team fighting ADC. You focus all your attention towards the top side. Either Kryra or Crimson gets ahead depending on what you put in the champ pool, and you go from there. And you have Shochi kind of fill in gaps wherever. But I kind of agree that they never really landed on that. And maybe they will going into the split, having figured that out. I do think Crimson, if given resources and if given a lead, was able to serve as a big carry during the qualifiers on CCG. And against some of the other top laners here, I think he has actually a pretty decent opportunity to be the best top laner in the tournament still. So I don't think it's a super competitive field that he has to deal with compared to maybe someone like Surdy or Philip in the NACL or Zamudo. So might be a little bit easier for them to get leads there. I do think that their top side is probably the strongest in this tournament.
I think I'm willing to agree with that. I think Crimson is definitely in the conversation. Grapes, do we think that Shochi is just the strongest player in this tournament?
No, it's Array.
You're right. Do we think that Shochi's the second strongest player in this tournament?
Yeah, pretty obvious one there.
Or at least the strongest mid. At least the strongest mid.
I think he's the top mid. I think that Kryra is one of the top junglers. We can have a conversation. I think he's in like he's not like slotted behind anyone. I don't really think. And then
Kizno's better.
And probably better. Dardoch. Maybe Dardoch, and then maybe Bio if you want to throw him in there. I mean, no, I don't know. Like it gets a little.
I think both Kryra and Bio are at least even with each other. They're both very good.
Yeah, I mean, we were Kryra believers from the beginning. Let's not get it twisted in any way. But I think top jungle mid, that trio, strongest in the tournament. I think that is going to be their strength, and that is their fire. And the thing is, Hawk, their bot lane's not anything to scoff at either. It's just a raise in the tournament.
Yeah, no, you're right. They have a lot of good players across the board, and I will say, at the very least for this team, even though my flame was like that, they feel like I can't pinpoint their identity. They also do their player. I'm trying to think of like the way to say this. They have role players that, if they're able to find that identity, will be very comfortable. So
I'm ready for Shochi, man. I think he's.
I am too.
I think
he's
still
too good
has so
for
much.
this.
Yeah, he's too good to be here. I think he needs to have a good tournament, and we'll be right back on track.
Yeah.
We gotta keep things moving though.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
move
let's
on
go.
to AOE Esports. 10th seed in the NACL, 0-9, but as we said, 7 out of their 9 series did go to 3 games. Cozy, City Witty, Onet, Mobility, Breezy. They seem like they have a different roster every week. I honestly had to look at Leaguepedia to remember who their jungler was. The last jungler I remember it being was Trickster, and obviously he's not there anymore. He was on Komodo. It was City the last couple of weeks. Weird, huh?
Yeah. Well, it couldn't be Trickster. He's busy playing on Komodo, man. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So to start it off, my fire for AOE, I think Grapes, they have the second best bot lane in the tournament, and it's not particularly close.
Yeah,
I
interesting.
think Array and Daption are obviously the best, but I think Mobility and Breezy are definitely stronger than all the other tier 3 bot lanes, and I also think they're stronger than Rockboom and Trevor, specifically in lane as well.
I think CCG give them more for their money, but I'm willing to partially agree with you there. However, I think it's funny that you said their fire is that they're the second best at something.
I mean, you only need to be the second best to promote back into the NACL, bro.
Hey, true. Very true. We had our conversation about mobility. You can go back to our headline if you forget. Breezy, I think, despite him having a pretty year,
It's been a while since we've seen him be the GOAT, but he's still good.
I think his pedigree is enough for us to have hope, especially in this field.
I'm fully recording the wrong thing, by the way. Oh my god, guys, it's been so late. Here, you guys can look at our nice slideshow. Fire in the Flame. Okay, CCG, AOE. Great, yay! Hawk did it.
What were we looking at?
We were just looking at our headlines.
Maybe we find a way to edit it so it looks the right. That's a question. That's a problem for Grapes tomorrow.
Well, let's see.
But yeah,
the camera arrangement's different, so good luck.
I think at AOE are an interesting team. I alluded to it in the headlines, but this is a team that I think could surprise some people, and I think maybe people are just coming in assuming they're automatically going to get relegated. Don't know if that's the case. The bot lane is a big part of that. I also think Cozy impressed a decent amount and in some games, and again, weaker top lane field than the NACL, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think Cozy will be fine, but I will just move on to my flame for AoE. I think they have the weakest topside triangle in the entire tournament. Except for Pulse.
I'm looking around.
Except for Pulse.
I think
the Duckie Getters have a stronger topside than AoE Esports.
So Fire, bot lane, Flame, top.
It's basically Fire is the bot lane, Flame is the topside. That's it.
I mean, City did not do well his time on Team Liquid First. Was the last time we saw him in tier 2. However, neither did Rovex, and he's doing pretty well right now. So that it's a little flexible. We haven't seen this guy in a while.
It's been a couple years since we've seen City be really good
in the jungle, at least.
In the jungle,
he was a good AD last year.
He was a good AD. He was second team AD or whatever the fuck in our 23 summer. We got flamed for that, by the way.
This team confuses me. This screams like a team that could completely just tilt out of the tournament and just not be present when it starts.
They could also randomly win the whole thing though. They totally could.
They could. I think Collimer predicted them to qualify back in, and then I looked at his bracket and I thought he was trolling, and then I thought about it a little more. And I'm like, there are pieces to this team that could do it, and so I think that is our take as we move on. Let's start talking about our qualifier teams. We'll go through these quicker because we've talked about them a lot more just over the episode or over the split. Dragoons, Goons, good pretty much everything. We talked about them in our first headline, Hawk. They do have weaknesses though, as you said.
Yeah. Guys, I'm gonna keep it really quick. The Fire is their bot lane and their jungler. I really do think Kisno has actually had a fantastic fucking split. The Flame is put the Dragoon meme in the video. That's it.
Yeah, no,
that's the thing.
The meme is hilarious, but I do think it could be a problem.
It
Dragoon
could be a problem.
Dragoon,
if you give Crimson Olaf 6 kills, you're gonna be in trouble, man.
like Dragoon, this is the conversation about the hands gap again, which is if Dragoon goes 0-6 against a team like CCG, it's going to be a lot harder to come back than maybe it was against a team like the Ducks or a team like that
Right.
was maybe
And
even lower.
the Goons are probably a better team than CCG, but their players are not obviously better.
Yeah, you can't make these like very obvious, like very avoidable mistakes anymore. And if the Goons want to be a team in the NACL, they're not going to be able to do that in the NACL either. So now's
When
the
they
time
don't make
to
unforced
do that.
errors, they look so good. It's not just Dragoon, by the way, guys. I know we meme on it a lot. Like they do make
Dapshin's had his
unforced
moments.
errors.
Kisno's had his moments.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Everyone except for Array makes unforced errors. It just is. I think you just take that with these players. These players are ballers. They're gonna just try to get in your face and outplay you. It just sometimes blows up, you know.
Yeah, definitely something to watch out for. I think CCG is a good matchup into them if that ends up happening. Let's go to Lotus. This is actually a team we didn't talk about much at all. But they did get knocked out by Komodo in the semifinals. They were safe for promotion anyway, but you know that these guys wanted a chance to defend their title, weren't able to do so. Porsche, Dardock, Robbie Bob, Sushi, Mixture. We have talked about this bot lane at length. I also think Dardock, as a jungler, is always going to be okay at this level of play.
Yeah. My fire for this team is I think they play around mid-jungle prio windows better than basically everybody. They're always trying to do something, and they never give anything for free. Robbie and Dardock have linked up so nicely. That's gonna be my big fire. I really think like even better than the Goons, who didn't typically play through mid. I think Dardock and Robbie together are a force to be reckoned with for any team in this entire tournament.
Yeah, Robbie Bob's not somebody that we talked about much this split. He was our first team
Quietly was
mid,
very
I think.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, and he played pretty well.
Did you know that Robbie was like first or second in every statistical category, even in the second tournament when we thought he was kind of quiet?
Yeah, I think quiet is the best way to describe it, because compared to Spring when he was on BlackRock and just was demolishing kids, not necessarily the same like level, but he didn't necessarily need to do that on this team because sometimes Dardock would pop off, sometimes Sushi and Mixture would pop off. Porsche was always there too. I think the weakness for this team is maybe the experience of their bot lane. We saw them get exposed by Lynx and Pika Pika a little bit in the semifinals. We also saw Array and Dapshin get a handle of them, and I think that some of these bot lanes from the NACL can do something similar, especially if Sushi continues to play his aggressive play style. That could definitely get punished in a tournament like this.
Yeah, my flame is greed. It's not just Sushi, by the way, although Sushi is a perp of this. I think Mixture sometimes positions aggressively and baits his team into dying or just dies himself. I think Dardock sometimes will overlook for plays. We saw that actually a lot in their semifinal series against Komodo, I thought, Grapes, where he was trying too hard to trade back when the rest of his team wasn't winning. Yeah, Porsche sometimes contests bad waves. So I think it's just greed for Lotus. Like they give away pressure when they're not able to mount it everywhere, if that makes sense. Like they're like either an airtight tank that's filled to the max, or as soon as you start letting air out, it comes out of like two different holes, and it's a little like, uh-oh, like that's problematic.
Yeah.
So.
This is the most boring team for me.
Disagree.
Maybe that's a hot take. I think that they are going to be fine, and I think them advancing or contending for a spot to promote is going to depend a lot on if the NACL teams come to play, or if they are like some of the other NACL teams that we've seen at tournaments like this and do not care if they win or lose.
I mean, I think they're the most standard team. I don't know if I think they're boring. To me, dude, I don't know if this is gonna sound flamey or not. I feel like Lotus is like the Winthrop of this promotion tournament. We're like,
yeah,
they definitely
they're
can
solidly,
promote, but like
they're solidly middle.
Yeah,
they're not super interesting to me in terms of storylines. They're just
I disagree with the lack of intrigue on storylines. I think it would actually be a monumental achievement for Porsche, Robbie, Sushi, and Mixture if they promoted.
Yeah,
Because they've
I
never
mean,
really
fair.
like none of them have really gotten their shot. Like Robbie kind of has, but
I think we'll see my bracket in a bit. Let's move on to the Ducks.
all right.
I think this team, talk about storylines, talk about excitement. Duckie Getters definitely here. Even though they have less points than Lotus, Lotus had performed better than them in aggregate over the course of the split. That's an important thing to
Wait a
remember.
minute. This is the Team Fish Taco from 2023 spring. That also had Dardock on it.
Also had Dardock and I think Robbie Bub on it too. So we got
Hit the nail on the head. All right.
Dr. Calculus, Bio, Rough Beans, Enthralled, Hiccup. I think the big fire for this team, nobody saw them coming. I don't think people are going to see them coming into this promotion tournament as well. The NACL broadcast and the NACL fans that have not seen any of the Ducks are going to be in for a wild ride when they see this team take their rift. Whether it's their creative play styles, their champion pools, their willingness to just lane swap it to whatever champions end up fitting whatever players.
It's crazy.
So much to say about this team. They are so fun to watch. And I think the entertainment value is definitely going to be there. And I think that at the very least, they're going to turn some heads.
A premonition I will give you for this tournament is I believe that the Duckie Getters are going to be disrespected by one of the two NACL teams, and they will knock them out of the tournament. This team will eliminate an NACL team. Either CCG or AOE will disrespect them and lose. I'm so for real. That is going to happen. Because I do think that's this team's fire. They have unorthodox strategies that are not cheese because the Duckie Getters actually understand how to play quality League of Legends within that. Like, their lane swap fundamentals are surprisingly really good. Rough Beans and Bio play around mid-jungle pressure windows really nicely on bullshit like Rengar Ivern. You have... Now, I will say, maybe my flame is that Bio hits some of the wrong timers when his mid laner doesn't have prio, and we should play through mid a little bit more to help him get prio to play towards sides. But that, that's maybe a little bit of flame.
Hey, he's green. He's a rookie.
Yeah, Dr. Calculus chooses really good waves to contest. Like, I don't know, man. I think this team, like, actually has legit good fundamentals. Like, they get, like, a B in terms of fundamentals, which is fantastic at the tier 3 level. And their unorthodox strategies and lack of household names means someone's going to disrespect them and fucking lose. And it's going to be really funny.
They have nothing to lose. They've already won.
Absolutely nothing to lose. Yeah.
They're four rookies and Enthralled who's never been at a promotion tournament before. They've already achieved far above any expectations that people had for them. They're the 3rd seed. They're not even the 4th seed. They're number 3 coming in. And I think that means that they are going to be able to play as loose as they want. They're going to be able to play their Duckie Getters play style. They're hopefully not going to try to, confine themselves into a more standard level of play because they think it's a higher stage or there's more stakes. I think if they play their game of League of Legends, they're gonna be really fun to watch. Weakness, Flame, all young players. I think weakest in terms of just like mechanics, I guess, or like pedigree. And I think that does mean something in a tournament like this. Yeah,
I'm with you. They are pound for pound the weakest team, except for, again, like maybe Pulse. I'm really low on Pulse in general if we want to move on to them. But yeah, I would agree with that assessment. And they do still make some fundamental mistakes that you would expect of a young team. It's just like they're surprisingly good at fundamentals, if that makes sense. But that might get them
they still have their
trouble.
moments. Yeah. Speaking of, move on to our last team as Pulse, according to Leaguepedia at least, has a roster
that's a typo.
change.
I have not gotten word from Jubes, so
this is what's listed in Leaguepedia. Of course, Azog was there. Originally, they were going to sign Mobility. They used to have Prismal and Claritz. Now it's this. I don't know about this team, man. They got 2-0'd in the quarterfinals. I think they
Yeah.
had good moments in qualifier 1. Will and Ariandel played really well together. That will be my fire for this team. I don't think it would be enough. I still think they're at best a middle of the pack mid jungle in this tournament.
Yeah, first of all, if they're playing Sagewabe or Sagewabe or I don't know how you say his name,
This
this
is
team
not
is fucked.
yeah, this is not a Rockboom sub in for promotion tournament on lit situation. This is a
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen Sageway play before.
I have, and like no disrespect, just will get cleaned in the promotion tournament. Yeah, if Sagewabe Sagewabe is playing, they're fucked. If Azog is in, their bot lane is pretty good. My fire would be Will though, just Will. I think Will is very good. Picks good timers. But my flame grapes is I think they are so bad at decisively making team plays. Like their 2-0 against Komodo is actually kind of close to give them some credit, but they also should have won game 1. They Baron
Oh
danced
yeah.
for 15 straight minutes and never got a damn Baron. I wanted to die.
It was tough to watch.
And it's because
I
they
know you were
beefed
casting
multiple
that.
engages. Yes.
You're casting that game. I was watching it. I saw Hoarder like go up like 5k over like Aurora and still like lose the game. It was
Well, that was in game
um,
2, yeah.
or that was game 2
1,
even.
game
Yeah.
1, I thought Hoarder had a terrible game on the Jax, if I'm being honest. Yeah, just missed flanks. Like, I think Polestar just does not know how to approach complex situations. If the game's not playing itself for them, they will lose, which is a problem.
Last fire for Pulse. The fourth seed historically always does pretty well in these
That's
tournaments.
true. That's true.
Whether it was Supernova or Lit, 2 out of 3. That's a pretty
Oh my
good
god, are they
success
gonna
rate.
torpedo Dragoon's Goons in the first round? No.
If Pulsar like I mean hey, it's always the team that like it was last two in 2023 as well.
Litiver
Team
Mirage
that bombed
Alliance.
out in the quarterfinals of qualifier 2. Nobody had any expectations of them, and then they come in and do something special. I don't know if this team has the juice. I hope that they prove us wrong. It would be fun.
It would be fun.
Let's move on to our brackets to close out this episode, Hawk. Very simple brackets in comparison to the NACL playoffs. Basically, how it works is the qualifier teams will be playing against each other in a little play-in. The winners of those will play against the NACL teams, and then a losers bracket happens where the losers, basically the play-in doesn't count, is how you have to think about it, as a round of double elimination. It just like sends you to the losers bracket, or sends you to the 5 and 6 seed, and then the tournament starts in a way. That is the best way to think about it if you are confused as to why the winner
Or you could
of
think of it
that
as
first
double
round.
elim and the NACL team's gonna buy. I mean that's
No, but the problem is like you theoretically like a round 2 loser is playing against a round 1 loser, and that doesn't make any sense in the grand schemes of
I guess
a double elim
sure.
bracket.
Yeah,
And so you have to
okay,
think about it
alright.
from this other slightly different perspective.
Okay.
Otherwise, it just gets a little bit weird. Regardless, here's my bracket. I think Dragoons, Goons, and CCG are moving on. I was very, very close between Ducks and AOE. I think Lotus could be in that conversation. I just really don't know if Pulse is going to be in there, man. I think Dragoons, Goons are going to sweep. I think they're going to have a tough series against AOE. It'll go 3 games. My hot take, I guess, is the Duckie Getters beating CCG in this upper bracket round, and Lotus, I guess. The Lotus and Ducks, they played and Lotus won in the second qualifier. I do not really remember what happened in that series. I do think the Ducks were kind of in a slump and they were coming back now, and they have a lot of momentum, and I think that can help them here. So I have them moving on. I have them going all the way to the qualification match, but then falling short in some best of 5s.
Damn.
The Cinderella run can last for a little bit, but it's not going to last the whole time.
All right, real quick, go down the line and give me series scores. Boom, 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 boom.
Okay, Duck 2-0 Lotus, Goons 2-0 Pulse, Ducks 2-1 CCG, Goons 2-1 AOE, Goons 3-1 Ducks, and then in the lower bracket it'll be AOE 2-1 Lotus. I'll give Lotus a game. CCG 2-0 Pulse. 3-2 in this NACL play-in that CCG will narrowly win because of their top side. And then 3-2 in the qualification match against the Ducks. I think the Ducks are going to really be on people's radar.
I like it. Our brackets are shaped alarmingly similarly, Mr. Grapes.
You got
Actually,
the Ducks?
not really. But we both have teams kind of going on lower bracket runs here, and I'm doing it. I'm taking the sauce, man. Every split, it's the team that no one expects, but they're America's team. Blue Otter
The problem
up in the
is
NACL, Duckie Getters in the promotion tournament, man.
the problem is, like, I think we're expecting them maybe a little too much. Like, I feel like because we've had these experiences of these lower bracket runs happening before, we're just assuming it's going to happen with the Ducks.
I'm going to
Whereas,
make
like,
a legitimate
wouldn't.
argument.
Okay.
Okay. So, Lotus 2-0s the Duckie Getters in the first round of the tournament. Dragoons, Goons, naturally 2-0 Pulse. That's not surprising. I think Pulse doesn't win a game in the promotion tournament. Then, Lotus against CCG. I think Lotus has a fantastic stylistic matchup into CCG because I do not believe Rockboom and Trevor will beat Sushi and Mixture in lane and punish them for their mistakes the same way that people like Array and Daption and Lynx and Pika Pika have. I do not believe that they will do that. And as a result, Lotus will get to play their game. They will make it to team fights, and people are going to start singing the gospel of Sushi in team fights. That is like my very legitimate argument as to why I think Lotus beat CCG 2-1 in the upper bracket. Dragoons Goons 2-0 AOE. Okay. Now, I'll stay in the top bracket. Dragoons Goons are going to 3-0 Lotus to move on. Maybe 3-1. Maybe it's like finals, but it's probably 3-0. If Dragoons Goons doesn't drop a game the entire time, it wouldn't surprise me at all. That's not interesting. We already have said that they're like the favorite. Okay. Lower bracket. The Duckie Getters against AOE Esports. This is the case of a NACL team disrespects.
There's your premonition.
Yeah.
You got both of them.
But this is the one that's born of disrespect, if that makes sense. Like, AOE is going to be like, all right, we can knock out the Ducks and like maybe get to a qualification match. And then they're going to get fisted. Like, they're not going to be ready for it. And it's going to be a 3-game banger, of course. Yeah, I think that Hiccup and Enthralled are going to have a tough time against Breezy and Mobility. I think Dr. Calculus is going to run Cozy off the Rift. And I think in the mid-jungle, like, Onat and City Witty are going to have no idea what the fuck to do when they play against Bio and Rough Beans, man. They're going to be like, what? Onat does not have the pool to punish Rough Beans' pool, by the way. Like, the champions that Onat plays aren't lane bullies, which is what Rough Beans has struggled against. So I think AOE is going to disrespect the Ducks and get knocked out. Okay, CCG against Pulse. Like I said, Pulse doesn't win a game. 2-0. All right, move on. So, CCG against the Ducks. We have seen the Ducks eliminate an NACL team. Pandemonium. All of the NACL broadcast talent are burning their prep sheets and crying their eyes out. Grapes can't believe Hawk is right. And
Whoa, I have him here too.
Now we come to this match. Yeah, now we come to this match. I think we talked about this in the headlines a little bit. Rough Beans into Shochi is a concern, a legitimate concern. Bio into Kryra is a really interesting jungle matchup. I think Kryra paths better in the early stages, but I think Bio is a stronger carry force. He's got like this X factor about him. Dr. Calculus against Crimson. That's going to be a great matchup. Two carry players really duking it out, doing their best stuff. What I will favor Calculus on, I like Calculus's pool into Crimson's pool. Calculus plays better duelists a lot of the time. Crimson plays like more like team fight oriented shit. You know what I mean? But Calculus has stuff like Twisted Fate, Rubble, Camille. He can pull out the Shen, man. I don't even know. He's got good stuff. He's got a bigger
Shen
pool.
into like a Fiora, go crazy.
No, exactly. He's got the pool to beat Crimson. I guess Crimson plays more of the duelists, and Calculus plays more for the team. But like, I think yeah, calculus still side lanes really well though. Either way, and it's gonna come down to a hands check. And in 5 games, the Duckie Getters are going to hands check CCG. They're gonna do it. And then in the qualification match, I think Lotus should like 3-1 the Duckie Getters, but I'm doing it for the sauce. So
For the sauce. Hey,
that's it.
hey, I think you're a little less optimistic about the qualifier, about the NACL teams than I might be.
I think. Oh yeah, that's part of it too. Mental Boom, CCG. They're not gonna have it figured out. Okay, they're not like Duckie Getters' really well refined play style is gonna be a huge problem for CCG when they try to play carries in all 3 lanes. Thank you for reminding me of my actual legitimate argument. I was waffling there for a bit, but that is my legitimate argument. I think the Duckie Getters have a more well realized team than this patchwork CCG.
I had I mean, I feel like I was a person that had high expectations for teams like Mirage Alliance and Lit last split that they both ended up, well, Lit I think ended up going on a bit of a run but falling short at the end. Something about coming down instead of coming up into this bracket seems to be very hard for teams to avoid. And so by history
Especially
standards,
against a team that plays like the Ducks. I'm telling you.
for history standards, like, this is not crazy. I was very close to picking the Ducks over
They're
over
weird
CCG.
enough. I think Lotus and Goons are the biggest threats to the Ducks because they understand how to deal with the weirdness. They've done it. CCG and AOE have not dealt with it. And their teams are probably held together by mental strings. So, you know.
Hey, here's our brackets. Post them, look at them, be motivated by them. Tweet at us whenever we get it wrong, because one of us at least will be wrong. But we're excited to watch the promotion tournament action. Kicks off today, and we'll be going every single day until Saturday, and then of course the NACL finals will happen then. We'll have an episode coming out this weekend, previewing said NACL finals between the 2 teams that we totally know are playing against each other. But that's going to do it for this episode, Hawk. Pretty fun one.
Yeah, absolutely. Grapes, I'd rather die a Gooner and a Duckies believer than blow my load in boring. So that's how we're going to do it. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media. At Salty Runback Pod, at Hawkcast, at Speedy Grapes. If you don't think the Duckie Getters are going to promote, and if you really hate the words that just came out of my mouth, you can take it with a grain of salt. As Grape said, promotion tournament, baby. It's going to be a banger. You're not going to want to miss it. Y'all stay safe and have a great night.